So, dear beloved Thai, dear beloved Sangha, yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was walking by the children in their activity, and they were the youngest groups of children, age 6 and 7, and I was really impressed by the calmness that were radiating from that group. They were really quiet and really still, and I decided to sit down with them, and I realized that they were having a sharing. So they had a talking bear, and they passed this talking bear around, and the children would, the child with the talking bear would share their suffering, what their suffering is, and how and what do they do when they suffer, whether they're sad or when they're angry. And I was really impressed by these 6 years old and 7 years old, because they were sharing real suffering. And I thought, wow, this is what grown-ups also need to do, to really come in touch with our suffering. And so we decided to do that in our Dharma sharing yesterday. And what came out was just a lot of relationships issues, concerns, daily ordinary concerns that people have, that we all have. And these concerns are related to our daily realities. Day in, day out. These realities, such as work, our responsibilities. I know responsibilities can really weigh us down. Even if we may not have done much, but just a sense of responsibility can be really heavy. Anyone ever experienced like that? Just a sense of... Most parents would be, right? Would have this sense of responsibility. Yeah. Responsibilities with the family, with children, sometimes with aging parents as well. There are relationships that need tending and care. There are concerns like sickness, aging, death. These are our realities, daily realities. These are our daily concern. And these concerns, these realities, can bring a lot of stress and suffering, restlessness, and sometimes even a sense of hopelessness or meaninglessness, especially for the young people when we think about the climate situation, right? That would definitely stir up a lot of restlessness, anxiety, fears. And I think a lot of us come here because we have these daily concerns and daily realities that are causing suffering for us, whether it is physical suffering or mental suffering. And only with this suffering that we are looking for a way out, right? How many of you are here for that? Looking for a way out? Just a few of you. Yeah. A way to work with these realities, our daily realities. And then we come here and we learn the practices, like simple practices to cultivate joy, to cultivate peace, to cultivate love. And I think now, by the end of the week, everyone had experienced some joy. Everyone experienced some peace and some love in their hearts. And the children especially, they experience so much joy. Children that at the beginning of the day, at the week, they were like, I don't want to be here, it's boring here. And then now, they don't want to leave. Or they're already planning with their parents to come back. Any of your children are like that? Yeah. So so the community as well as the practices really help us to cultivate joy. Joy, peace are tangible. And even the children, they may not have the practice as we do as grown-ups, but they do feel that joy and that peace and that love in the community. And that's what made them want to come back. Yeah. So the basic practices that we've learned so far. Breathing, walking, smiling. Smiling is also a practice. You notice that a lot of people here in Plum Village smile a lot. Well, that's a practice. They practice to smile. Because when they smile, it brings joy to them, it brings relaxation to them, and it also helps to touch the joy in other people as well. It's contagious, these smiles. Yeah. We learn how to be with our body. We learn how to be with our emotion, our pain. And all these practices, we call them the Dharma doors. They're tools to help us to really be in the present moment, to touch the present moment deeply. It is coming back to our breath, coming back to our steps, that we generate the energy of awareness, the energy of presence, the energy of mindfulness. And it is this energy that can help us to touch joy, that can help to kind of de-stress, soothe and calm, the tension, the pain that we may have in our body, in our mind. It's the energy of mindfulness and being in the present moment that help us to come in touch with peace in here. So really, it's these basic practices. They're not just basic, but very foundational practices. The breathing and the walking. They are really to help us to stop. Stop here. Shh. Stop running in our head, so that we can see deeply. So those are the two aspects of meditation: stopping and looking deeply. These are the two aspects of meditation. Well, last week there was a friend who asked, came up to the Q&A and asked this question. Well, it's just breathing and walking. I kind of feel bored. Like he's been practicing for some years, and he felt kind of bored that we're just doing breathing and walking. Anybody feels bored just like breathing and walking? You do, huh? Thank you for being honest. Yeah. Sometimes we feel bored, just breathing and walking. And I remember Thai used to say how breathing was delicious. And I thought, how is it possible that breathing is delicious? I don't experience the breath being delicious. Anybody here experience the breath being delicious? Like eating the best kind of food you have, great, good for you. And then one day I realized, yes, Thai is right. Because the breath, the breathing, as I was practicing it, I felt such nourishment in my body, such joy, and such release of what it was that I was holding on that was preventing me to be in the present moment. And I realized, yes, Thai, you were right. It is delicious. The breath was really delicious. And only when you experience the breath being delicious that you can overcome your boredom of just breathing and walking. And when Thai passed away, before Thai passed away, Thai said that Thai didn't want us to build a stupa for Thai. Because Thai said, I am not in the stupa, but I'm not outside of the stupa either. And if there's anything of me, it's your breath and your steps. Thai is not going to transmit to us anything that's boring, right? Well, it's in this breath and in this step that we can touch deeply the present moment. And it is in the present moment with this energy of mindfulness that we can touch joy and peace here and now. And so we stop it with every breath. We stop running in our head with every breath, with every step. And that sounds pretty easy, but it's not easy, because this habit of running in our head is so strong that it is really difficult to really arrive here every step, in every breath. And when only we can arrive here with every step, with every breath, that we can really taste the deliciousness of the breath and of the steps, of the practice. You taste joy. And it's the joy that nourishes us and it will motivate us to continue with the practice. How many of you have been here before? How many of you have been here many times before? How many of you are coming here for the first time? Yeah, thank you. There are more people coming here for the first time. That means that those people who are not coming here, some of them may be just feeling, it's the breath and the steps again. So they're not coming back. But it's in these very ordinary actions of like breathing and walking and eating and urinating, defecating, that we can really come in touch with our true nature. What's our true nature anyways? I think that's what we are looking for, right? That's our ultimate concern. Because at the end of the day, for us to have the energy, the clarity to embrace all these suffering and all this stress of our daily realities, we need to be able to tap into this ultimate reality, which is our true nature, our ultimate concerns. And believe me, the breath and the steps are the two of the many tools that we can use to really tap into our ultimate reality, our true nature. Because the breath, mindful breathing, mindful drinking, mindful eating, mindful walking, like these ordinary things that we do. That we do them here, we do them at home, we do them here, but when we come here, we learn to do them with mindfulness. We learn to really savor every every morsel of food that we're tasting. We're learning to be there with this water that we're drinking and with this step that we're making. And what happens is that when we are doing it with mindfulness, our minds become quiet. And we're here now. We're not getting carried away by the past, like with all these stories and narratives about the past, or ideas we have about ourselves in the present. It's like self-image that I need to kind of protect and maintain. I have semi-image of myself, and I need to kind of like maintain that and making sure that this self-image is not threatened by anything, because if it is threatened, it can provoke my kind of this response of either fighting or running away. Kind of that flight and fight response. And then we think about the future. Like, what would I be in the future? And so these practices, simple as they may be, ordinary, just such as just breathing, just come in touch with the breath, come in touch with our step. They really help us to really quiet down our mind so that we can be in the present moment. It's like entering a different realm, the present moment. Sometimes the present moment, here now, can be quite novel for us. It's the moment when we can just silence our mind in order to really experience it. Because the moment that we have these thoughts, these stories, these narratives, these ideas about me and them and me and she and him, whatever, then we are not in the present moment anymore. And it is in the present moment that we can come in touch with our true nature. And then Thai offers some really beautiful poems. They're gathas, they're practice poems. Let me just read some of the poems for you, because I love these poems and I practice them. And these poems really help me to stop running in my head, because I'm focusing on the poems. Can you, like living with poetry? Isn't that beautiful? Like living with poetry. So practicing the gathas, it's like living with poetry every day. And these poetries help us to really touch deeply the present moment and see deeply into our own nature. Here's a gatha on eating. Eating in the historical dimension. So I'm eating right now. I nourish the lives of my ancestors. My ancestors are in me. When I nourish my body, I'm nourishing also my ancestors. And so when I'm nourishing myself with this food and with the energy of mindfulness, then I'm nourishing them. I'm nourishing my ancestors. And I open an upward path for my descendants. So when I am taking care of myself, live the best that I could by being mindful and present, well, that's a transmission. That's a beautiful transmission that I can offer to my children, to my descendants. I'm opening a path of beauty and goodness for the descendants. How about a poem on using the toilet? Because we use the toilet all the time, right? And whenever I come into my toilet and close the door, this poem is always there in front of me. And it's like this. Defiled or immaculate, increasing or decreasing. These concepts only exist in our mind. The reality of interbeing is unsurpassed. So that's a reminder of my nature of interbeing whenever I sit on the toilet bowl. Because, whatever I'm consuming is coming from the whole cosmos, right? Well, it's exiting me also. There's this exchange, this nature of interbeing. So that's a reminder that our nature is the nature of interbeing, of interconnectedness. Let us breathe. Here's another poem that I really like. Urinating in the ultimate dimension. It's all about eating, urinating, defecating. Like mundane kind of activities that when done with mindfulness can help us to touch our ultimate reality. Isn't that wonderful? So with the breath, with the steps, so that we can arrive here now to touch our ultimate reality. Urinating in the ultimate dimension, a wonderful exchange takes place. The cosmos and I interact. There's no increase or decrease. When you live with these kind of poems, it's like watering that insight of interconnectedness. And if you're interested in these poems, you can find them in the book called Stepping into Freedom. There's a book, an old book, I don't know if it's still on sale, it's called Wonderful Moment, Present Moment, Wonderful Moment, that has all the poems. But the one, Stepping into Freedom, it's actually a book for novices, and it has all these poems in it, and new poems that I had written for the practice. And as a training for monastics, we learn these poems by heart so that we can apply them in our daily activities, our daily life. And that's the beauty of living in the monastery, is that every moment can be a moment of poetry. On Monday, my sister was just talking about poetry, sharing her poetry. Well, I'm not really a poet, but I love poetry, and these poetry are really helping me to come in touch with my nature of interconnectedness. It reminds me of who I am, that I am not just this body and these experiences that I'm going through inside my mind, but I'm much more than that. And these practices, coming back to the present moment, when we come back to the present moment, quieting the nonself thinking radio in our head, we can touch deeply what is there in the present moment. When we look at the flowers, for instance, this lotus, we can come in touch with the mud and the muddy water, because these lotuses cannot grow without the mud and the muddy water. And like in the talk for the children, what they need Father Sun, Mother Earth, Mother Rain, Mother Air, just like we do. And like with this breath is not just to calm our body and mind and to quiet down our body and mind, but when we are there with this breath, we realize that this air that we're taking in, well, first of all, this air that we're breathing in, it's really the air of these friends that are breathing out. I'm taking them in. They're part of me right now as I'm taking the air that you just breathe out. And you're breathing in the air that I'm breathing out. But also this air is coming in here and it's refreshing, it's nourishing us. Because without this air, like the children said, we can't be here. And so this air in here is an extension of this air out here. And I need this air to survive. And so this air out here is also me. So when I'm taking care of the earth to the best that I can, by planting trees, well, I'm taking care of this air out here because it's also this air in here. And that's my nature of interconnectedness with this air and with everything else. And so in this breath that we're breathing, we can really come in touch with our true nature. Our true nature is the nature of interconnectedness. I need this breath. I am this breath. And I'm this air. And so just with the breath, we can come in touch really deeply, our nature. So if the practice is boring for you, the practice of breathing is boring for you, maybe you haven't really breathed. Maybe you think you're breathing, but there's like this voice in here that goes all the time. You're not actually in the present moment to really experience this delicious breath. And when you touch this delicious breath, you will also see your interconnectedness with the breath out here and with the air out here. You are the air out here. And not just the air, but the earth. The earth, I am made of the earth. And I need to nourish my body every day with earth. And I give back to the earth to nourish the earth. And so this earth in here, it's really this earth out here. They are one. I am an extension of this earth out here. This is the earth that I'm carrying, but this is also the earth that's I am part of this earth. And this earth is also in me. We can touch that nature, our nature of interconnectedness. We're not separate. We don't exist in isolation. We have no separate entities. We are made of this earth and this air and this sun, the heat, and the water. These are the 4 elements that are made up of our body. Consciousness also, you're made of consciousness. Because your consciousness has become part of my consciousness. Thai's consciousness have become part of our consciousness. And so, it is by coming in touch with the present moment that we see these true realities, this nature of realities, our own nature and the nature of realities. And it is not very far. And when we can come in touch with the nature of interconnectedness, that is no longer just ideas and concepts in our head, but like our daily experience, our daily insight, our daily realities. Well, they come they become our daily insight and our daily realities when we continue to contemplate on them, when we continue to practice, when we continue to be in the present moment in order to see that. Because when we are not here in the present moment, we can't really touch our nature of interconnectedness. We don't really see the air out here as being us. We don't see really we as an extension of this air or of this earth, right? We're too busy in here. So we need to quiet down our head and be in the present moment. When the moment we arrive in the present moment, we start to see these realities that are unfolding in every moment of our life. So let us breathe with one sound of the bell. So the nature of interbeing, or the nature of interconnectedness, is actually another way to say nonself. You know, in Buddhism we hear a lot about nonself or emptiness. Non-self, which means there's no separate self. There's no solid self. Emptiness simply means that there's no solid, separate existence of a self. That everything is interrelated, interconnected, interbeing. Everything is interdependently arising, which means that this is because that is. When all the conditions are there, then I manifest. When the conditions are no longer there, then I cease to manifest. That's simply it. When one of the conditions are no longer there, for example, the breath, then I cease to manifest. Right? These also, every one of us, everything there is, that we need all these conditions to come together to manifest. And when the conditions are no longer there, then we cease to manifest. So there's really no death. It's just a season of manifestation. No birth. Birth simply means that something, there's nothing, and then it becomes something. Like a lotus, for example. We don't see the lotus, and then all of a sudden we see the lotus. We think that's the birth of a lotus. But we know that before this lotus, blooms, or before it becomes a lotus bud, or it needs all the other conditions. It needs the muddy water. It needs the mud. It needs the sunshine. It needs the air, right? All those elements are needed for a lotus bud to manifest so that we can have a lotus flower. But if we don't have the sun, when it's really cold, like in the wintertime, well, we don't see lotuses. That's one of the elements that's missing for the lotus to grow. And it's the same thing for us. So we don't say that the lotus is dead. It just went hiding. The elements are not sufficient enough for it. And that element that was missing was the summer heat, the summer warmth for the lotuses to bloom. So, no death. When the conditions are no longer there, When it's autumn time, winter time, what the lotuses, they just go hiding. They're just waiting for the right conditions, waiting for that warmth of the summer heat so that it can manifest again. The mud is still there, the muddy water is still there, the air is still there, just missing one element, and we don't see the lotuses. So I'm reflecting on Thai. Thai is no longer there. How many of you have met Thai in person? How many of you have sat in this hall with Thai? Well, we are a few that are very fortunate because many people who are coming to the practice now have never really encountered Thai and met Thai in person. But that doesn't mean that they didn't see Thai. Because how many of you have felt Thai's presence here? Especially those of you who have never met Thai, have you felt Thai's presence here in the community? Yeah. Thai's not dead. Thai continued in different forms. And some of you have encountered Thais in these different forms. You know, when I was in Vietnam for about several months. I just came back actually just 3 weeks ago. And I was really surprised because, you know, Thai is a Vietnamese, you know, from Vietnam. And yet a lot of Vietnamese people have not met Thai. And a lot of the practitioners that I talk to have never really met Thai in person. But they have really encountered Thai. They had touched Thai in different manifestations. Thai is no longer in this physical form that we know, but Thai had manifested in different forms. Well, let me just share with you the story of this girl, a young woman who had depression for several years. And I met her in Vietnam this time. She had depression for several years. She couldn't work anymore. She didn't have the energy to do anything. And one of her friends, who was a practitioner, gave her a calligraphy of Thai. And so she decided, she really liked the calligraphy, so she decided that she's going to write calligraphy. She's going to imitate Thai's calligraphy. And she did that every day. That's all she did. Was just practicing writing calligraphy, imitating Thai's calligraphy. And you know what happened? Her depression was healed. She came out of her depression just by imitating and writing calligraphy. She had encountered Thai through his calligraphy. Thai had manifested in his writing, in his calligraphy. And not only did she come out of her depression, but she started a business on selling calligraphy supplies and making calligraphy papers. And then she was so inspired that she offered classes to teach people writing calligraphy. Isn't that inspiring? Like Thai continues in her. She had come in touch with Thai so deeply that Thai led her, you know, out of this depression to touch a new joy, new aspiration. And so this young woman never really met Thai, but she had really encountered Thai, and Thai has become a part of her life. And so when I was in Hanoi, I lived there for a month, and every week we had Sangha gathering because the local Sangha really wanted to spend time with the monastics. So we had like once a week we would meet. And one day, you know, it was 4 weeks, so 4 Sangha gathering. And one week, the second week, there was a young man, 21. He came and he was really curious. He He wanted to know. He heard about, the Sangha, and he heard that there's a nun here. So he came and he just want to be there. And then we had, like sharing, and we had meditation, and the next week he brought his friend. Like these two bright guys, two bright young men came. And he said, and he shared, he said, well, last week I felt like I really encountered Thai. And I went back and I told my best friend, we gotta go, you gotta go, because we gotta go and see Thai. And at first I thought, like, what does he mean by Thai? And then he went on to say, everyone here was really Thai. The nun here was really Thai. You are Thai's continuation. And he brought his friend so that his friend can also feel the presence of Thai. And at the end of the session, his friend came up to me and said, sister, like Thai saved my life. Like I didn't really ask, like how is it that Thai saved your life? But I could imagine what it's like for young people when they hit despair, when they are, like in the deepest, the darkest, place where they don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. And Thai is the one that just put out a hand, to help pull him out. Thai saved his life. And he said, during Thai's commemoration, second commemoration day, he bowed down and he was sobbing so much, in front of Thai's picture. He was crying so much because he felt so grateful to have encountered Thai in his lifetime. And I was in awe because, wow, like this young man who've never really met Thai in person had really encountered Thai, had really felt Thai's presence. So Thai is not just in this physical form anymore. He's no longer in his physical form, but he's continuing to touch lives. He's continuing to be in everyone's hearts and mind, if we care to be in the moment to really see that. It's been in the present moment that we can come in touch with Thai's presence in these different forms. So Thai is not actually dead. Thai just ceased to manifest in his physical body. But Thai continues. Thai continues. And these young people were really fortunate to have come in touch with Thais in these different forms and had saved their lives. So let us listen to one sound of the bell and come in touch with our breath. Come in touch with our heart. Come in touch with Thai through this breath. Thai, as Thai has said, Thai is not in the stupa. Thai is not outside of the stupa. And if there's anything of Thai, is this breath. Thai continues in us. Thai didn't die. Thai continues. His body ceases, but his consciousness continues to be part of our consciousness. We can tap into Thai's consciousness with this breath. So in the historical dimensions, where there's birth, there's death, there's suffering, there's joy, there's being, there's non-being, there's coming, there's going. We can touch deeply the ultimate dimension. And we need to be grounded in the present moment with the energy of mindfulness in order to touch the ultimate dimension here and now. And in the historical dimension, we are the waves on an ocean. And the waves can be born, the waves dies, the wave can be high, low, beautiful, less beautiful. All these ideas, all these signs that we see in the waves. But if we touch deeply the water, we see that the water, these signs do not describe the water. The water is our true nature. The water is the true nature of the waves. And the waves are just manifestation of the water. And sometimes the water the waves, sometimes you forget that it is the water. In itself, in its body, it is the water. We forget that we are the water. And so we go up and down, we suffer in and out, in depression, despair, anxiety, and we forget that we are the water. And only with the practice of coming back to the present moment that we can touch our nature, our true nature of interconnectedness. And once we experience the nature of interconnectedness, it transforms all our fears and anxiety. When we come in touch with our true realities, true nature, we can experience great joy and happiness. Joy and happiness that doesn't depend on these external conditions. We can be truly free here and now. And when we touch the ultimate dimension by touching our true nature, we are actually experiencing Nirvana. Nirvana here and now. Nirvana is not just ideas or a place where we're going to enter, when we get to a certain level of practice after we die. Nirvana is simply the absence or the extinction of all ideas and concepts, like silencing these narratives and stories in our head. So Nirvana is something tangible and that we can experience here and now in this historical dimension with all the suffering. That these simple practices such as breathing and walking to help us to quiet down all these ideas and concepts, we can experience our true nature. We can touch Nirvana here and now. So here we are. The historical dimension where there's birth and death. And through these ideas of birth and death brings up a lot of fears, anxiety, despair, like all these things that we are experiencing in our daily realities. like we talked about at the beginning. And it's through this breath and this step so that we can be in the present moment. We can touch our nature of interbeing. Non-self, our nature of non-self, no separate self, no separate entity. And through things such as urinating, defecating, through drinking, eating, through just breathing, like we've talked about, and then we can touch our ultimate dimension, which is Nirvana, where there's silencing of all ideas and notions, all these ideas of notions of being, non-being, same and different, discrimination. Coming, going, concepts that can bring a lot of anxiety and fear. To touch Nirvana, to touch our ultimate reality, our ultimate nature. And it is not a place somewhere else. It is here in the present moment that we can touch Nirvana, where we can experience no birth, no death, only manifestation, when all the conditions are sufficient. And the season of manifestation, because conditions are no longer sufficient. Simple, isn't it? So Nirvana is something that we can experience here and now. And it is through just breathing and walking. And if you are bored of just the practice of walking and breathing, well, you may want to sit down and just really do it. So that, see if you can really touch your nature of interbeing, at least the nature of interbeing of this breath. Then you can touch your nature of no birth and no death. You can touch Nirvana here and now. So good luck, everyone. So thank you. Thank you for listening. So let us listen to the sounds of the bell for us to breathe and come in touch with how simple it is to touch Nirvana. How simple it is to touch our nature, our true nature. We need to bring our mind here, and the bell can really help us to come back to the present moment, to come in touch with our body, come in touch with our breath, and deeply this moment.